This program deals with themes of an adult nature and is intended for a mature audience.
If you like what you watch, then don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates on the KTPF Community Talk Show. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for our new weekly radio shows. To accompany the KTPF Community Talk Show, we now have our own free magazine to view online or download for free. Visit our website for more details. Also, the KTPF Community Talk Show is supported by Phenomenon Magazine and Beyond Parazine, available online now. The comments and views expressed on the KTPF Community Talk Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the views of ourselves or of our sponsors.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
They've landed.
You're in the right place. Online, on the web, and on air. All over the world.
Talk Radio.
You hear us, we hear you.
Yeah, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to another edition of the KTPF Community Talk Show, live from Manchester on www.ktpf.co.uk, broadcasting on KTPF Radio, Worsley Radio, and also on DM Radio in New Jersey, USA. And mobile listeners can also listen in at gotoit.link/KTPF mobile. And for our regular listeners, you can also watch over on our Ustream, Ustream channel as well. My name is Suzanne.
I'm Steve.
Are you on? Try again.
I'm Steve, there you go.
And over in Essex, we have our regular co-host, parapsychologist and historian Andy Mercer. Good evening, Andy.
Hello, guys. We're all sounding a bit rough at the moment, aren't we?
Just a little bit. Yes, you've come to an ill house, I'm afraid.
Yes.
We are not very good tonight, so it could be a short show tonight, I'm afraid, guys. So please bear with us.
If you hear coughing and spluttering, I do apologise.
Yes, so but we'll try and bring you a lively show as always. Now we are here keeping the paranormal friendly each and every Sunday, so pull up a chair and relax with us. While we bring you a show full of the supernatural, the paranormal, and other strange phenomena. Now, as always, we would like to start by acknowledging our guests this evening and to remind you that if you have any questions for us or our guests, you too can get involved with tonight's show via our live interactive chat room. Or alternatively, you can call in by adding ktpf.paranormalshow to your Skype contacts, but please message us at the same time so we know that you are a listener. Remember, if you've missed a show, then listen to our last 4 podcasts via our website. Underneath the menu bar, it would say podcast. These are also available on our YouTube channel at KTPF Community Show, along with past shows dating back to March 2012. Now, we'd like to say a big hello if you're listening in New Jersey, those on DM Radio. We hope you enjoy the show this evening, and also on Worsley Radios, and also our regular listeners on the KTPF. Now, just to let you know what's happening tonight, we've got Richard Freeman coming on the show. Richard is one of Britain's few professional cryptozoologists. His interest is in unknown animals reaches back to his childhood, and he has had a long and varied career working with exotic animals. He has travelled extensively in East Africa, Europe and the US, studying the native fauna. In 1996, he took a degree in zoology at Leeds University and afterwards moved to Essex to work full-time at the Centre of Fortean Zoology, the UK's only cryptozoological organisation. We'll be finding out more about that later on. In October 2000, he visited the remote jungles and rivers and caves of Northern Thailand in search of the Naga, a giant crested serpent said to lurk in the primal morasses of Indo-China, and explored deep caves never visited by Westerners before. And as I said, we will be talking to Richard about cryptozoology, his expeditions, and find out more about these elusive creatures that he's been looking for. How's your week been, Andy?
Not too bad. Been quite busy. As you know, my book is due out literally Monday, actually. It's going to the printers. Unfortunately, there was a bit of a snag that had to get fixed quite quickly. So, unfortunately, my time was more dedicated to getting that sorted out than the magazine. So, unfortunately, our magazine's a little bit late this month, but it will be out by next weekend. I am fairly certain that will be the case. But other than that, not too bad. I've been in London today visiting a friend, and I've come back with a stinking headache. So, as I say, all three of us are suffering at the moment. But other than that, yeah, not too bad. Not too bad.
Yes. So Steve's unfortunately had a bad cold for the past few days, so he's been coughing and spluttering. So please bear with him. Talking about that, we've now cruelly got to go over to him for his observations. Sorry, dear.
That's all right. Don't worry. No worries. Where'd it go?
I don't know. Where did you go?
I just posted something and it didn't come up.
I know it's been a bit slow actually.
Ah,
there you go.
Oh, there's the first one. Okay. One afternoon, I was taking some knitting to the local craft store. As I walked through the parking lot, a woman I had never seen before. Excuse me. Or since ran to me across the parking lot. She suggested that I call my brother immediately so that he could get to my mother's at once, as she had fallen and was in serious trouble. She emphasised this. As she walked alongside of me, I continued into the craft store. Now, she said, you have to call for help for your mother now. She left me and returned to the parking lot. At first I thought she had made a mistake me for somebody else. Then it dawned on me, why would she say call my brother to help my mother? I was in Southern California. My brother lived a mile from where my mother was in Arizona. I went to the nearest phone and called my brother, asking him to go and check on her. Right then he grumbled and said okay. I told him I'd be home in 20 minutes and asked him to call me to report. When he did call 2 hours later, it was to say that he had found mother lying on the floor in her kitchen. He called the paramedics and they took her to hospital where she was in satisfactory condition. He had been at my mother's earlier that day and would not have returned for at least another day. Although I visited the craft store frequently and park in the same lot as that day, I have never seen the woman again who warned me. Phantom lady said, get some help.
Yeah.
Nice, isn't it? It's good when it happens like that.
What's next?
It is.
That was very strange.
It
Very
was
strange.
strange, wasn't it?
Mm.
Kind of thing you mediums do.
Yes.
Yes. Come on, guys, you should climb up a bit here. We're a bit kind of flat as a pound game. Yes, we should. No, it's really strange. I mean, the only know of anything even vaguely similar to that was a friend of mine. I've probably told this story before, many years ago, who had a very odd experience when he was camping with a guy he met, and strange things happened on the trip, and he lost contact with the guy afterwards. And some person, an older woman, walked past him in London saying, "I know your friend's okay, don't worry," something along those lines. I mean, we told the story. All very weird.
Definitely. Okay. What's next? Yeah. Yes. Have you turned your thing back on? Your mic.
Oh, there you go.
Try again.
Oh, thank you. sound even worse now. A young woman died after her parents allegedly formed an exorcism to get rid of a demon inside her. 22-year-old named as Jacqueline Sanchez by media in Belize, Central America, died after she suffered a cardiorespiratory arrest. Local media also reported claims that her body had been lifted up in the air inside the church and she had spoken in a man's voice. They also suggested that she be forcibly held down as they performed the religious ritual. Her parents allegedly believed she had been possessed by a demon after a number of unexplained illnesses in the months before her death. She had been suffering from convulsions, hysteria, which doctors at Plantras Mill Hospital in Santa Cruz could not diagnose. This led her parents to believe that she had been taken over by spirits, after reports that she had played with the Ouija board.
Oh, blimey.
The Ouija board again. She died after she failed to breathe after the apparent exorcism, which took place at the Pentecostal church in San Ignacio de Velasco. Special force to fight crime in Santa Cruz are investigating her death. They confirmed she died of natural causes and said that cuts and bruises on her body were due to a trance. The spokesman, Roger Gutierrez, said the forensic report realises that the girl identified as Jacqueline Sanchez died of natural causes due to a cardiac arrest, and the bruises and lacerations on her body were due to a trance that she was suffering from. There you go.
It's caused by a trance. That's unusual.
Yes.
Well,
A chance tends to mean you're not doing anything about getting bruised. That doesn't make any sense.
She was in some sort of trance and flashing around.
Right.
You wouldn't necessarily flash around in a trance. You don't do anything in a trance. You sort of sit there,
Yes.
not doing anything. So
You do if there's a demon inside you, boy.
I have to say though, it's interesting how many of these stories seem to come out from Central and South America.
Yeah.
The obviously strong Catholic Christian countries. We don't tend to hear too many of these kind of stories. It's usually sort of Africa or South America. African countries are Christian, follow Christianity, and South America. So you do wonder. It's obviously a psychological link between the two. The idea of believing in demons and being possessed by demons.
Yeah.
If you believe you're going to be possessed by a demon, you can become possessed by a demon. Doesn't mean they're real demons, of course, but you can certainly act and react as if you're possessed in the classic sense without actually being possessed in the classic sense.
Yep, it's all in the head.
Yes.
You can make these things happen. There's a powerful instrument, the human brain.
Well, absolutely.
Okay. Kim Wilde believes seeing a UFO 6 years ago changed and made her feel more connected to the universe. I does apologise. The kids in America singer is convinced she and her friends spotted an otherworldly being in the sky 6 years ago, and the encounter made her feel more connected to the universe. She said, "I was in my garden with a friend that the day after Michael Jackson died, we saw two bright lights in the sky. They were about 20 times the size of an aeroplane. They were hovering and then zigzagging really quickly for about 10 minutes. It was in the local paper, as we weren't the only ones who saw it, and it changed my life. I feel connected to the universe. It's made me really inspired, full of wonder and hope. I believe it's similar to when someone says they've seen God." Though Kim is not religious, she believes she is eternal and her spirit will live on forever. She told OK Magazine, "I feel I'm eternal. That's all I know. It's a big thing to know. I had a sense of it before, but now I know. I think my husband and I are on the same page about it. Both of us think we'll be making that journey together."
Okay.
Did she give up being a singer and did gardening for a while, I think, if I remember rightly?
Yes, she did.
Yeah, she's a landscape gardener, isn't she?
Yeah, especially doing touring and stuff with this 80s revival thing that's been quite big the last couple of years. She's doing a lot of that now, isn't she? Interesting, yeah. So, yeah, so what to say about it really than that. That's interesting.
The actual picture on that article, she seems to have lost a lot of weight since the last time we see her, when she was doing the gardening stuff.
Okay, what's next? Is this your last one?
I think so, yes. I mean, just post it up. I'm off to Japan.
Chat room seems to be being a pain at the moment. We are in the process of going to be looking for a new chat room, so please bear with us.
Yeah, I'm off to Japan.
Japan?
Yes. In this fabled Japanese ghost child caught on camera, expected to believed to bring good luck, is seen in the living room. This is the creepy moment when a man claims to have filmed the ghost floating through his home, which according to Japanese folklore brings with it good luck. The footage of the encounter was uploaded to Facebook by the homeowner in Japan and shows what appears to be a child moving around the light. It is first seen floating from the left before crouching down and disappearing. Moments later, it reappears on the right of the light and appears to hover above it before vanishing completely. The video of the supposed haunting apparition was posted by the homeowner, who claimed it was a Zashiki Warishi, a famed character from the Japanese folklore.
Okay.
While the appearance of such a spirit would spook most homeowners, he claims to be thrilled to find it in his home. The Zashiki Washi, whatever it is pronounced it, I do beg your pardon if you are Japanese and I'm saying it wrong, which I probably am, is one of many supernatural characters that include monsters and spirits. They make up Japanese folklore. But unlike the haunting ghosts of Western fables, it is not a creature of terror. Taking the form of a child, aged 5 or 6, it is believed to be the childlike nature and enjoys playing pranks. Once it takes over a property, the homeowners are said to receive great fortune. Yeah, ghosty fortunes. What do you think of the video?
I can't seem to get to play as usual. But it's interesting because old Japanese folklore legends has been the source of so many films the last sort of 20 years or so, all kind of using the mythology. You've got things like The Ring, of course, which is Japanese in origin, and oh blimey, yeah, it looks like that looks very favourite shop type stuff to me, but I don't know. What do you reckon?
I don't get what all that light's about.
No.
I mean,
samurai sword in the background where the kids sort of walked past.
I mean, going from the left, it looks like a girl to me.
Oh.
And when it comes back the other way, it looks a lot more like a boy.
No, this looks a bit suspect to me. What was the film that Sarah Michelle Gellar was in that she did not that long ago?
Ghost Whisperer.
No, that was a mythology type thing. It was based around in Japanese myth. Oh, I can't remember what they're called. My brain's not working. But yeah, there've been a few films that have come out of the last few years that have all taken sort of modern Japanese mythology as the source of lots of these films. So here's maybe another example what could be used.
Well, that was your last one, was it, Steve?
Yeah, that was indeed, yes.
Well, you'll see the link for my 2 penneth. And on the theme of cryptozoology, I'm not sure about this one, to be honest with you. Flying humanoid over Indonesia may be an orangbati. Not all flying humanoids are the same. In Indonesia, there could be an orangbati, and that's what many are thinking after seeing what appears to be a flying humanoid creature over the city of Solo. Is it an orangbati or something else? The incident occurred on the 30th of November 2015 at around sunset in Solo, which is better known outside of Indonesia as Surakarta, and is located on the island of Java. The person who took the photograph chose to remain anonymous, but speculated that the apparition could be humanoid, a hologram of a human or some form of UFO. The hologram suggestion leads some to suspect it might be a part of Project Bluebeam, which others think the shape makes a humanoid look more like an aircraft. Then there are those who wonder if it might be an orangbati. The tales of the cryptid known as the orangbati come from the Indonesian island of Seram, the largest island of the Maluku province. It is usually described as a red-skinned man-like creature with a tail and black bat-like wings, or a flying orangutan. The Indonesia word orang means man or person. And the stories generally include incidents of them kidnapping babies and children at night. Seram is thickly covered with rainforest, giving the orangbati plenty of cover to hide from humans before flying back to the volcanoes where they live. As a flying monkey or an oversized bat, the orangbati could be in a class with the ahul, also from Indonesia and Vietnam. The camasot, or death bat, of Central America, and the bat squatch of Mount St. Helens in the state of Washington. Some accounts have put it closer to the ropen, a pterosaur alleged to live in Papua New Guinea. Of course, the photograph does not give enough evidence to determine conclusively if it shows a flying humanoid like the orangbati, a triangular aircraft, a giant bat, a hologram, or possibly a portal. But what do you think it is? Now, I'll be honest with you, from what I saw on there, it could be a giant bat. You know what I mean? But, you know, I'm going to ask Richard Freeman if he's heard of this orangbati, see what he says about it.
Well, as I said earlier, hopefully not related to Nora Batty.
Nora Batty.
The film I was trying to think of, by the way, is called The Grudge.
Oh, right, okay.
There's a lot of modern urban mythology from Japan that have been made into, first obviously Japanese-made films, and then getting re-filmed in America in English. And The Grudge and The Ring are all part of that same collection of films that have been very popular. So and they've all been like, it's been a real source of modern films. Japanese sort of folklore and myth.
Oh well. So, but yes. So we'll see what happens with Richard Freeman if he talks about some of his cryptids that he's been looking for, and he's looked for quite a lot. There's been the orang pendek. I think he looked for the Makalamembe, which I've got some questions to ask about that. The Naga, which I mentioned earlier, the Didi, giant anaconda. There's been quite a few animals out there, so that maybe are still lurking about. But on the subject of animals and legends, Krampus came out on Friday. Yes, the annual celebration that happens in Germany on the 5th of December. Just to give you a little bit about the legend of Krampus. For hundreds of years, children in the dark forest of North Central Europe have cowered and dreaded the annual return of Krampus, the Christmas demon. His origins are fuzzy, rooted deep in German folklore, but by the 17th century he was appearing in Christmas cards alongside Santa Claus as an alter ego, if you will. Santa gave toys to good little boys and girls. Krampus, on the other hand, didn't. Naughty children are had more to fear than a bag of coal from Krampus. He would punish them, beat them, and worse. Those who were truly naughty were stuffed into Krampus's backpack and taken to his lair, where they were eaten. How in the hell, you may be asking, did this character get his own holiday? It happened centuries ago. The Feast of St. Nicholas, traditionally held the first week of December, was preceded the night before by Krampusnacht, the night of Krampus. On Krampusnacht, Krampus would go from town to town, village to village, gathering up naughty children and punishing them, stuffing them into his sack and kidnapping them. Today's youth, as we have seen, are naughtier than ever. Many have grown to legal drinking and smoking age, giving them full rein to be even naughtier. In these sinful times, during what we're told is probably the end of days, Krampus is no longer feared. He is celebrated, and so the first week of December, the ultimate holiday celebration we give you for naughty boys and girls, and that's the legend of Krampus. And as I said, the film came out, and it's acquired some reviews actually, quite quickly. Just to give you an idea of what kind of reviews there have been, according to the AV Club DC, whichever that is, the holiday horror of Krampus isn't naughty enough. The Times said that Krampus is too dumb to be scary. Some others who have actually been to see the film This is what they've said. 5 stars, a scary Christmas tale worth seeing. Loved it. I had no idea who Krampus was and found this movie to be scary, funny and heartwarming. Some little kids will be scared for sure, as I was so prepared, perhaps the tweens are a better fit. The little kid actor MJ Anthony is the focus of the film, and we last saw him in last year's Chef, where he played Jean Favreau and Sofia Vergara's son. So when I saw he was starring in Krampus, I just had to see it. The director tells this story of a dysfunctional American family brought together for Christmas, where joy and happiness are replaced with horror and fear. Another review was good film, really fun movie that strikes a balance of mayhem and humour with terrific art direction too. Reminds me of Gremlins. There really isn't an audience of this type of alternative Christmas tale, but I think this film will find success for many more years as a cult classic. Another review said this is a good film. Then there was another one, funny, somewhat spooky, surprisingly meaningful. I can honestly say that I generally enjoyed spooky movies, which is largely because I laugh at their ridiculous nature. I was expecting to laugh at Krampus, and I did. But to my surprise, the humour was rather genuine. This film is not the everyday scary movie. Very little, if any, gore, hence the PG-13 rating. I find that the humour in this film overweighs the spooky element, but my biggest surprise about Krampus was the meaningful aspect of it. This movie fits in with the holiday spirit and is not simply a poor excuse for a December movie, as I generally assume whenever I notice a Christmas-themed scary movie. And another one said, not a bad film, loved the cast and the witty repartee, reminds me of Gremlins and Critters with a holiday spin. That's just some of the reviews that I don't know if there's any bad reviews, because they were all 4 and upwards. Let's just see if we can find any bad ones.
Somewhere.
Yeah, one person sucked ass. So disappointed in the movie, somebody said. So they wasn't actually impressed with it. Let's see what else we've got here. One of the worst movies I've ever seen. Please do not waste your time or money.
It's dream.
Yeah. So there seems to be more fors than against. But if you're looking for a downright horror movie, it doesn't sound like that's what it is. It's more of a fun film.
This is a horror comedy, so yeah. Both elements are there.
Have you seen it yet?
No, I don't suppose I'll get to see it until it comes out on DVD. Mainly, my wife's not a big fan of these sort of films at all. And our local cinema, you can't just walk to it, unfortunately. It's one of those sort of... it was a place called Baz Vegas, as it's known. It's a new cinema to me. It's one of those sort of multiplex-type places with bars and what was a nightclub is now closed down, bowling alley, all that kind of stuff is nearby. Yeah. So... that's the newest one to me, and that's some way off from here. So unfortunately, I won't get to see it until it comes out on DVD, I'm afraid.
I don't know. So, but that's what the reviews are at the moment. So.
Stephen's vanished.
Yes, he's gone to. I think he's gone to sort himself out. I think he was coughing a bit too much.
Oh dear.
Right, what we're going to do is we're going to get our guest on, see if he's ready. Yeah, I can hear him coughing.
Oh dear.
Coughing his heart out upstairs, so we'll just see if he's ready and we'll get him on. And as I said, Richard has claimed an earlier obsession with classic science fiction series Doctor Who with John Pertwee, and which sparked his interest in all things weird. Here we go, and I'll just add him to the group. After school, he became a zookeeper at Twycross Zoo in Leicestershire and became head keeper of the reptiles, working with more than 400 exotic species from ants to elephants, but with a special interest in crocodilians. After leaving the zoo, he worked in an exotic pet shop, a reptile rescue centre, and was even a grave digger. Good evening, Richard.
Hello there, how are you?
How are you? You all right?
Yes, I'm fine, thank you.
Steve's disappeared at the moment. He's gone to have a coughing fit, I'm afraid. So, it's been a long time since you've been on the show, and it's been great having you back again. But just as I said to you earlier, we have got some new listeners. So if you could just tell us a bit about yourself, Richard.
Yeah, I'm a cryptozoologist. I study, search for, and try and find evidence of anomalous animals, or cryptids. These can include animals that are completely unknown to science, like the Mongolian death worm or the sea serpent, creatures that are thought to be extinct but actually might still be around, like the Tasmanian wolf, and also animals of a known species that have grown far larger than science says they should, like the giant anaconda in South America.
Right, when we're thinking about cryptids, we don't realise, do we? We've said this before, that the common garden gorilla, which it is now, and the giraffe were once a creature that everybody talked about in jungles and stuff, and people like yourself found them.
Well, gorillas were thought to be nothing more than ogres from native folklore.
Yeah.
The lowland gorillas were discovered in the 1840s. But the mountain gorilla of Central Africa, they were thought to be completely mythological up until 1901. And more recently, there have been whole populations or groups of gorillas. These are very large animals that live in groups of 40 strong. Whole populations of hundreds, sometimes thousands of them, have been discovered in areas where they were completely unknown before, and that's very recently.
Yeah, and when you sit back and think about the everyday animal that we have in our life now, as opposed to the things like the Makalemembe and the Mongolian worm, you don't realise. You think, oh, these are just animals that people are never going to find. But when you think about the gorillas, it could happen, couldn't it?
Oh yes, I mean recently there was a new species of tapir discovered in South America. So large animals do turn up. Still, and there's a false notion that the whole of the world has been mapped and is well explored, which is untrue. Even in the days of satellite photography, satellite photography and Google Earth, it can't penetrate through forest canopies.
No.
There are massive areas of Asia, Africa, Australia, South America that are still utterly unexplored, and even areas where native people very rarely go.
It's very fascinating. I must admit, since meeting you and John and everybody, I have actually become a bit of an armchair fanatic. I'm quite interested in what's going on and everything. But can you tell us first of all how you became interested in cryptozoology?
Well, I'll give the same answer anytime everybody asks me this. I'll give the same answer, the same two-word answer. Doctor Who. I grew up in the early 70s when John Pertwee was the Doctor. He was incarcerated on Earth by the Time Lords. They'd taken the dematerialisation codes from the TARDIS. So all the monsters he met were on Earth. They were on your doorstep. So you had things like giant green maggots slithering out of slag heaps in Wales, and super intelligent humanoid dinosaurs in caves in Derbyshire or coming up out of the sea. And all of these creatures were so immediate and frightening. They weren't on some faraway planet, which made them more compelling and more scary. And as I grew older, I heard stories about real monsters, real creatures that are unknown to science. And when I left school, I became a zookeeper, specialising in reptiles. And a bit later on, I discovered a magazine called Animals and Men, which wasn't as rude as it sounded. Started writing for them, became the Yorkshire representative, and then finally moved down to Exeter and started work with the Centre for Fortean Zoology. And from then on, I've been all over the world searching for all sorts of strange creatures.
So what is the CFZ? How does it operate?
The CFZ, that's short for Centre for Fortean Zoology. It refers to the American researcher Charles Fort, who was active in the early part of the 20th century. He was the first guy really to look at mysteries as a whole, rather than concentrating on one thing. He looked at these odd fringe subjects, which he called the damned, because science had ignored them or damned them. And things like falls of fish from the sky and spontaneous human combustion and other mysteries, including cryptozoology. So that's where the word Fortean comes from. And the organisation was set up by a guy called John Downes, really as a clearinghouse for information on strange creatures. And as the society got larger, we started to do publishing, and we've got a publishing arm called CFZ Press, where we initially published books on cryptozoology, but we've moved out now on and spread onto other areas of Forteana and also weird fiction. And we take expeditions around the world looking for strange creatures.
Now, when it comes to your expeditions, you've done quite a few. We'll go through a few of them in a moment. But can you walk us through a typical exhibition? What experiences do you have?
There's no typical one. Most of them are slightly different. It depends on where you're going, how many people you're taking, and so forth. But the key to it all, every time, is to get good native guides, get local knowledge. And we've been very lucky. We've had some great native guides like Sahar Dimas in Sumatra and Damon Corrie in Guyana in South America. These native guides, they can set things up for you before you get there. So you hit the ground running. They can find witnesses, they can find transport, they can arrange places to stay, sort out the food and the stuff, and they're the key to the whole thing. Without good native guides, your expeditions more or less will fall apart. Now there are times when we're in sort of more westernised countries like Australia, where we don't have native guides. We're in a car or a van or something, and we've got maps, we've got sat navs and things, and we do it that way. But when you're out in the Mongolian desert or the jungles of Sumatra or the Garo Hills of India or somewhere like that, you really need your native guides who know the area.
Have you ever come across any animosity? Like, for instance, a mutual friend of ours, Richard Thorns, I remember him telling me that he went out on one of his expeditions and he was shot at and stuff like that.
Oh, no, I've never had that kind of animosity. I've been attacked by a cobra. I've fallen down an ice crevasse, fallen off a cliff, nearly got swept away by rapids, been covered in mosquitoes and ticks and leeches, but I've never had any real problem with people.
No, so you've never actually said, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here then?
No.
So how do you finance these things, Richard? Obviously, I don't suppose you get help with this.
Very rarely. Usually it comes from our own pockets. The people on the expedition all pull their resources together and we pay from our own pockets. Occasionally we'll get television companies back us to make documentaries. The last time I was in Sumatra, I was with a French filmmaker called Christopher Kilian, and the French company Arte put money up for that expedition. I've had the games company Capcom finance me to do the giant anaconda in South America, but these are very rare, so it's usually through your own pocket. I'm still trying to break into television. I'd like my own series. I'm working with the French guy to try and interest television companies in not only in one-off documentaries but in whole series. I mean, and I've been trying to break into television, oh goodness me, since the 90s.
Yeah.
No luck so far. I do the odd documentary here and there, but no luck in getting my own series. And we always come at it from a very scientific viewpoint. We do cryptozoology scientifically, and no one seems to be interested. And when you look at some of the garbage that is on television, that people get these series and they keep getting them recommissioned, and it's nonsense. They never find anything. The way they go about doing it is absurd.
It's not a genre that people do pick up on. You get all the other genres, don't you, and stuff. But cryptozoology, people don't want to look at for some reason, and it angers me. It really does.
Well, at one time I was approached by a researcher for a series called Jane Golding Investigates, and Jane Golding is Jonathan Ross's wife.
Yeah.
And she'd done a series looking at the paranormal, and they wanted to do a second series, and they said they want to be more scientific with this one. We want to look at cryptozoology, but we haven't got a huge budget, so it'll have to be Britain or Europe. So I gave them some ideas, one of which was that a lot of lake monsters, sightings of lake monsters, are in fact gigantic sterile eels. And I gave them the idea of how these could be baited, how we could possibly get them close to cameras to get film or photographs of them. And the researcher thought it was great. He said, "Oh, this is wonderful. This is just what we're looking for. It's superb. I'll get back to you in about 2 weeks' time. I've got to go and talk to the producer. But this is great." Got back to us in 2 weeks' time, and he says the producer doesn't want to do it because it's too real. It's natural history, and he wants stuff like guardian angels and stuff like that.
Yeah, I must admit. You know, it is hard, you know what I mean? But it's... I know I'm just one person, but I'm sure there's other people out there that would be interested in some sort of program about it, to be truthful. Now, I've been looking on the internet and just having a look around for some cryptids that some people might think that are still available, still, you know, not exactly extinct. I wanted to know whether you could give me your take on some of them. Now, the woolly mammoth, apparently there's consensus dating the mammoth that there were some remains on the Wrangel Island in North America.
Wrangel Island, yeah, it's off Siberia, and they were living there until relatively recently, something like about 5,000 years ago. Where on mainland Europe they were mostly extinct by about 10,000 years ago.
Yeah. There's also one about a pigeon, a passenger pigeon in North America, extinct 1914.
The passenger pigeon, sadly, I think is totally dead and gone.
Yeah.
It was once the most numerous bird in the world, and the flocks numbered in their billions, and they would darken the skies for days. Literally, there were so many of them there. There was a record of one flock, and I think it was 3 miles long, and something ridiculous like 100 miles long. And people used to shoot them for food, but also for sport.
Yeah.
And when the numbers started to get low, the birds stopped breeding because they would only breed when they were in fantastically large numbers. So the ones that they were taken into captivity never bred. And once they went past this tipping point, there was no going back. The birds were doomed.
Right.
So from the most numerous bird in the world being extinct in less than a century.
Oh,
the woolly mammoth is almost certainly gone.
Yeah.
There are occasional reports from the Russian taiga, the great forests, the great boreal forests of Siberia, of hairy elephant-like animals. But mammoths were not forest animals. They lived on something called a mammoth steppe, which was open grassland, whereas the mastodon, another species of elephant, lived in the more forested areas. So there's a possibility that the prehistoric mastodon might still be about. It's unlikely that the mammoth is around, although there are steps being taken at the minute to try and clone mammoths. And when technology catches up with our dreams, maybe the mammoth will walk the earth once more.
Maybe. The Honshu wolf, 1905, Japanese wolf.
The Japanese wolf, oh yes. The smallest of all the wolves, the dwarf wolf, or Japanese wolf, was once considered a sacred animal, but then was hunted into extinction. But there are persistent reports of Japanese wolves from the wilder areas of Japan, and we think of Japan as being very overpopulated, and it's got a huge population, but they're in the cities. Most of Japan is forested mountains, and I have seen some photographs that very convincing that look like they are Japanese wolves.
Right. And now we've touched on this one before, the Mokele-mbembe, extinct 65 million years ago. Now, I've been looking around and first of all, can you tell us about the Macallamembe? But I've also heard that it could be a ceropod, a new species of monitor lizard, or another theory that it's a rhino. What do you think?
Well, Macallamembe, the name in the Pygmy language means he who blocks the rivers, or he who dams the rivers. It's supposed to be a large animal about 30 feet long, with a long thin neck, a long whip-like tail, and a very big powerful body, sometimes depicted with a fin or crest on the head, sometimes not. And it's supposed to live in the swamps and rivers of the Congo. Now, I can state almost categorically that it's not a sauropod dinosaur.
No.
Sauropod dinosaurs were extinct 65 million years ago, and we have nothing to suggest that they survived in the fossil record. Also, sauropod dinosaurs lived on land. They didn't live habitually in swamps and rivers, which was a Victorian idea. They used to think that they were so big and heavy that they lived all their time in water to buoy themselves up. And indeed, there's a burgeoning amount of evidence to suggest that sauropod dinosaurs, some of them were the biggest animals that ever lived, even bigger than the blue whale.
Yeah.
A dinosaur called Amphicelius that was known from some vertebral discs that were 10 feet across, which would have been well over 200 tons in life. But these animals lived on land, like elephants or giraffes. They were creatures that browsed and grazed vegetation and wandered around on land. They didn't live in water.
Could it be a form of elephant?
Unlikely, because it's supposed to attack elephants and hippos.
Right.
And it doesn't. The descriptions don't sound anything like an elephant. It's most likely to be, if it exists, a gigantic semi-aquatic monitor lizard.
Yeah.
That's my best guess for it. Something several times bigger than the largest Komodo dragon, and living partially in the water. The rhinoceros theory comes from a bit of a confusion between two animals. There's another mystery animal in the Congo called a melanotoca, the killer of elephants, which is a four-footed animal that's supposed to have a great horn on its head, which it uses to gore elephants and hippos with. And that sounds more like some species of rhinoceros.
Right, okay. Now, I've heard a story that a pygmy tribe caught and ate one in 1959. Is there any truth in this?
We don't know for sure whether this is true or not, but the stories are quite an interesting one. They said it was frightening the fish away from a certain lake, so they put logs with great stakes on them underneath the water, and when the creature was moving from one lake to another along this waterway, it impaled itself on these spikes, and then they speared it and arrowed it from a distance until it died. And then they ate the body, and everybody that ate the flesh died.
Right, okay. Now, on the subject of pygmies, it's not just weird creatures or possible extinct creatures that you've been looking for. I believe in 2007 you looked for an unrecorded race of three-footed pygmies with red faces.
Oh, that was when we were in South America. We were over there ostensibly to look for the giant anaconda, but we'd been asked to go around about October time by Capcom, who were sponsoring us. But unfortunately, there were terrible, terrible droughts, the worst in living memory, and the waters were very low, so we couldn't get out to the remote lakes where the giant anacondas were. But while we were there, we heard stories about all kinds of other things, including a race of pygmies. And we heard this again and again all over Guyana, that there were a race of people, tiny people about 3 to 3.5 feet tall, that went naked in the bush, and they painted their faces red. They had red faces, and they painted it with ochre or paint or something. And even our guide, Damon Corrie, had seen one.
Wow.
I must have heard that. I thought you said it was 3-footed, as in had 3 feet, not 3 foot tall.
3 to 3.5 feet.
Right. Okay.
Feature.
I was going to ask you a bit about Bigfoot and that in a bit, but we've just got a question from Mozzie in the chat room. Is Bigfoot, etc., which I assume he means Yeti and everything else, native to this planet or ET, alternative dimension or an alternative dimension in origin? What do you say about these Yetis and stuff?
Well, there's more than one type of these things. In Asia, the Yeti is a term used for at least 3 different creatures. A very large one, about 3 meters, 10 feet tall, with with black or dark brown fur, which may be a surviving form of Gigantopithecus, which is a huge ape known from the fossil record that died out about 300,000 years ago, that we know from its teeth and jaws. And the shape of the jaw suggests that it would have been a biped. So that may be the larger type of Yeti. We have a more medium-sized one, a sort of man-sized one, that moves on two legs but can also lope along on all fours. And that has sort of auburn to ginger-coloured hair. None of them are white. Forget you ever heard that the Yeti was white. It's a complete misnomer. It comes from a mistranslation of the Sino-Tibetan Mito Kangme, which means abominable man of the rocks. It was mistranslated as abominable man of the snows. And that's where we get the idea of a white Yeti from. The Yeti is not white. This medium-sized one may be a mainland species of orangutan. We knew that orangutans from the fossil record lived on the mainland of Asia as well until relatively recently, and they were larger than the known species of orangutan. And then we have a smaller one with a light brown to sort of honey-coloured fur, and that's about 3.5, 4 feet tall, and that's may be related to the orang pendek of Sumatra. In Sumatra we have a 3.5 to 4 foot tall upright walking ape, generally said to have black or dark grey fur, but occasionally you get these ones that have a sort of honey-coloured fur. I mean, I've heard these calling. I've seen their handprints and their footprints. We've even had hair analysed by Copenhagen University, and Lars Thomas from Copenhagen University says this is a new primate. It's related to the Sumatran orangutan, but it's distinct from the Sumatran orangutan. It's a species. I think it's the third living species of orangutan. We have the Bornean orangutan, which is Pongo pygmaeus, and the Sumatran orangutan, Pongo abile, and they speciated some 400,000 years ago when Borneo, Sumatra, Malaya and Java were one landmass called Sundaland. I don't mean Sundaland up near Newcastle. It's called Sundarland. And they had already broken off into two species, so I think there's this third species that's adapted to living on the forest floor. That's the orang pendek. Then we have the much more man-like almasty from Russia and parts of Central Asia, Siberia, which may be a early offshoot of Homo erectus, that is a very robust, large offshoot that is adapted for mountainous life, living in mountain forests. Then we've got the sort of slightly more problematic ones, like the yowie in Australia, where there are very few placental mammals, but there are reports of these hairy ape-like creatures. But they may, in fact, have rafted across. And rafting is when animals are swept out to sea when there's floods or a tsunami or something. Animals are swept out to sea on mats of vegetation or uprooted trees, and this is a known way of animal distribution. And we do know that Homo erectus got to the island of, it's either Crete or Cyprus, one of the two, and I can't remember. I think it was Crete, because we found the stone axes of Homo erectus, and Crete has been an island for about 5 million years, so they must have been swept across and survived, and a population started there. Now, in the Pleistocene epoch, Australia, whether the levels of the sea were much lower than they are today, and there was more of a land bridge. There was only about, I think, 20-25 miles of water between Asia and Australia. So they could have been, the ancestors of the yowie could have been swept across to Australia from the mainland. And with the Sasquatch in North America, they could have crossed the land bridge. There was once a land bridge connecting Asia to North and Europe to North America. So the ancestors of the Sasquatch could have walked across. I don't buy the idea that they're extraterrestrials. I don't think any extraterrestrials have ever visited Earth. I don't think they're interdimensional. I think they're flesh and blood animals in the same way that you and I are.
Right, okay. Talking about the orang pendek, you've written a book about this, but I see you've been back recently. Well, I say recently, 2013 you went back.
Since I wrote the book, I've been back twice, so I'll have to update the book at some point. Yeah, I went back with the French filmmaker Christopher Killian, and an incredibly beautiful and charming taxidermist called Adele Morse. We found more footprints and more handprints there than we ever have before, and we heard the creature calling in the jungle, and we collected the biggest group of orang pendek witnesses ever got together and interviewed them all, and they'd either seen the creature or seen its footprints.
I believe that last time we spoke to you, you had some fur or something. You was being tested. Did you ever get that tested?
Well, that was the fur. We had some hair tested by Lars Thomas at the University of Copenhagen, and he looked at the structure of it. The DNA was very broken because it had been out in the jungle. But he was got from the hair structure. He says this is a primate, higher primate related to the Sumatran orangutan, but it's not the Sumatran orangutan. He says that I can only conclude that there's a new species of higher primate in Sumatra.
Wow. So it's obvious that these are creatures that have been undiscovered, you know what I mean? Which is what cryptozoology is all about, and we need people like you to find these out for us. It's like a new discovery. Things that have happened years and years ago is happening in our own lifetime now. It's...
As Bernard Heuvelman said, the great days of zoology are not gone. There are still some amazing discoveries to be made, both on land and in the sea.
Definitely. Now, one of your favourites, apart from the orang pendek, is a certain little tiger, otherwise known as the thylacine.
The thylacine, also known as the Tasmanian tiger or Tasmanian wolf.
Yes.
Neither a wolf nor a tiger, but a wolf-like marsupial. It's a flesh-eating marsupial, and it's a great example of convergent evolution. That's where two animals, opposite sides of the world more often than not, and not at all related, evolve to look like each other because they're inhabiting the same ecological niche. They're doing the same sort of thing. And the thylacine looks very like a wolf or a dog, but it's got these tiger-like stripes on its back. It lived throughout New Guinea, Australia, and Tasmania, and it was supposed to have died out on mainland Australia and New Guinea about 2,000 years ago, surviving only on Tasmania, where it was supposedly hunted into extinction in the 1930s because it preyed on the settlers, the white settlers' sheep. Now, since that time, there have been over 4,000 sightings of the thylacine. The last one died in Hobart Zoo in the 1930s, but since then there have been over 4,000 sightings, including one by a zoologist called Hans Narding, who saw an adult male thylacine from a very close range. Its continued existence has been predicted by a computer program, and I was over there about a year ago now. I was over there and I spoke to some witnesses that had seen it, some very good witnesses, including a government licensed shooter who goes out keeping down the numbers of wallabies and feral cats, and he'd seen it twice. I'm heading out there again to Tasmania in March next year to look at some new evidence and go to a place I haven't been before where there's some new evidence that I can't really talk about, but it's very exciting and interesting. But in all likelihood, the thylacine survives on Tasmania because we know that its closest living relative, the Tasmanian devil, recent genetic studies have said that they only need 25 individuals to make a viable population to breed back again. So even if the thylacine was hunted to the edge of extinction, just a handful of them could have bred back in the wilder areas of Tasmania. And of course they would be very wary of human beings, nocturnal, so they're probably still out there. And in all probability, there are still populations on mainland Australia and in the jungles of New Guinea, which is one of the most unexplored areas in the world.
Wow. What possesses you? What spurs you on to find these creatures?
The quest for scientific knowledge. I'm not interested. People say that, oh, Forteans, they love a good mystery, they like to preserve mystery. Well, no, I want to know the answers. I want to know what's out there. I want to know what is the next hill, the next mountain. I know what is lost beyond the ranges. I want to find creatures, prove that they exist, and get them protection.
And just to to establish here, for those that have late joined us, you don't get funding for this. You know, you do this all out of your own pocket.
Sometimes, once in a blue moon, we get funding from television companies.
Yeah.
But usually television companies ignore us.
Yeah.
Our own pocket. And I'd like to make an example of there's a man who one of the projects I want to do is a biography of a French scientist called Pierre Denis de Montfort. Now, one time he was the most celebrated biologist in Europe in the late 18th and early 19th century. He was a biologist and one of the most celebrated scientists in Europe. He went all over the world on expeditions. He was an expert on mollusks, and he wrote books that are still being used today. Now, he got talking to some whalers from Newfoundland and Nantucket and places like that, and they would tell him stories of when they hunted sperm whales, that the whales sometimes had huge sucker marks on them. And sometimes when the whales were dying, they would vomit up huge tentacles, 45 feet long, with great suckers on them. And he interviewed loads of these people, got masses of information, and he postulated that there was an enormous species of squid of fantastic size, quite capable of attacking small boats, and he even spoke to people who had been on boats that had been attacked by these creatures. Now, because of that, he became a scientific pariah. The whole scientific community turned on him, and he died of starvation in a Parisian gutter in 1820, this great man. And in the 1860s, he was proved correct when the first giant squids were caught. And there is still this overarching arrogance in mainstream science, often by people that never leave their comfy chairs. They will proclaim this and that can't exist because they would have known about it. And this is what happened to Pierre Denis de Montfort. So I want to write a book about him. I want to do a documentary about him and the giant squid, and clear his name really, and get him the recognition he really deserves as the person that was responsible more than anybody else for collecting information on this creature.
Yeah, I can understand that.
A friend of mine, Adam Davis, got some orang pendek hair that was looked at by an expert in mammal hair from Australia. And this guy, he'd been involved with the police before. Do you remember the famous case where the dingo killed the baby in Australia?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the guy that proved that it was a dingo. He got the hair, and he proved, his name escapes me now. But Adam had got some orang pendek hair, and he had written this paper with this expert in mammal hair, saying, "Oh, this is a new species of primate." And the editor of Nature magazine said, "I can't print this. It's too controversial because it's a large animal. If it was a new species of mouse, I'd have no problem with it. But it's too controversial because it's a big animal," which is a stupid, insane way to go about science. Now, a theoretical physicist can write a paper on a hypothetical particle. That no one had ever seen. It's just inferred from the reaction of other particles around it. But if a theoretical physicist writes a paper on that, it's fine. If a zoologist writes a paper on an undiscovered species of animal that thousands of people have seen, that then is seen as heretical. You see the dichotomy here. It doesn't make sense.
No, it don't. So, sorry, we've been having problems with the chat room. People have been trying to post their questions. Can you go over to Ustream, guys? I'm just been trying to sort it out. If you can go over to Ustream, the link is there if you can see it, and use the chat on there. Yeah, just sign in with your Facebook. It's the only way you can do it. And we'll get you a new chat next week. I don't know what's happened there. Sorry about that, Richard. Technology.
Yeah, I'm a Luddite. I don't do machines at all.
I know, it's been a pain of late, I must admit. We've been trying to transpose it to something else. So, going back to expeditions. Now, apart from the Rampendek, you've mentioned the Mongolian deathworm before. Now, you went out to try and find this in 2005. What did you actually find out?
Well, when you hear stories about the Mongolian deathworm, the natives over there, the nomads, they call it olroi huihui, which means intestine worm, because they say it looks like a great length of cow's intestine lying in the desert when people see it. By the time the stories get over here, get to the west, they've morphed into something that's worthy of doing battle with Doctor Who. It's a blood-red, squirming horror that can spit acid and generate blasts of electricity that kills its victims, and it can kill full-grown camels with its electrical blast. And when you actually go out there and talk to the people, we went for about 1,000 miles through the Gobi Desert talking to various nomads with wonderful guides from emongol.com who set the whole thing up. The people who actually know about it, they say that the electricity, or throwing lightning as they call it, they say that this is a myth. It doesn't do that. It's just a story. But they do say it can spit a venom, and they're very frightened of it. We talked to about 24 witnesses, ranging from an old man who'd seen it in the 1930s up to a guy about my own age who'd just seen it the year before. And in one case, one man, when he was a boy, saw it when he was tending to his family's livestock. He went and told his mother and father, and they packed up the gur, the circular tents that they live in. They packed the gur up, rounded up the livestock, and got out of the area, because when a deathworm is seen, it can send a whole community into a panic. And I met an army colonel who had seen one out in the desert when he was driving his motorbike on patrol. Loads of people, and they were all describing the same creature, sort of brick red, salami-like, lying in the sand. One guy said he saw it catch and eat a mouse. Another guy said it was slithering in and out of holes in this forested area. It sounds like, rather than a worm, it sounds like some sort of reptile, maybe a worm lizard or amphisbaena. Amphisbaenas are burrowing reptiles that are related to snakes and lizards, but distinct from both of them. They're found mainly in Central America, parts of North America, Europe, and parts of Africa. But they're unknown in the Gobi, but this could be a very large new species.
Right, okay. And Ninkinanka?
Ninkinanka, now that was one of the ones we more or less disproved. Ninkinanka is supposed to be a swamp-dwelling monster.
Yeah.
And before I went over there, I thought maybe it's like Mekelian Membe from the Congo, but much further north. Maybe there's something like it, or a memory of something like it, in the swamps in Gambia and the Senegal. But when we went over there and talked to people, they were all describing something much more serpentine, something like a huge snake with a crest on its head, with mirror-like scales. And if you saw it, rather like the basilisk in medieval folklore, you'd die, but it could take you up to 5 years to die.
Right, okay.
But it seemed to be, most of the people we spoke to, they hadn't seen it. A great hunter from my village once saw it and he died, or my grandfather saw it, or a friend of a friend saw it and they died. And anything that goes bad, like a car crash out in the bush, it's blamed on the Mekelian Membe. Sorry, on the Ninkinanka.
Right.
And they do go in great fear of it. One chap said that his uncle saw one when he was a boy, and the whole village, packed up and left. That was the fear of it. But it seems to be, rather than an actual real animal, it seems to be more of a demonisation of a pre-Islamic python cult, because over lots of parts of Africa, certain animals were venerated, crocodiles in some areas, pythons in others. And if there was a python worship cult in the days before Islam got in there, one of the things that a major religion does when it comes into an area, it will either co-opt the local religion into itself and absorb it, like Christianity did in ancient Britain. A lot of our saints are old, much older than Christianity. They're old Celtic figures. Or it will demonise it and turn the python deity into this terrible death-dealing horror that lives in the swamps. And I think that's what happened in Gambia and Senegal.
Right, okay. Now, have you ever personally seen a cryptid or any secondary evidence of one? And if so, can you please describe your encounter?
Yeah, I've seen footprints and handprints of the orang pendek, and I've worked with all known species of ape.
Yeah.
I've seen their handprints and footprints in all sorts of mediums: mud, snow, earth, wood chippings, you name it. I've seen I've seen their sawdust. I've seen their footprints in all sorts of things. The orang pendek was different. Apes tend to have a very narrow heel. The orang pendek has a very thick, round heel, rather like a human. And it's got 3 toes at the front of the foot and 1 offset big toe that looks prehensile or semi-prehensile, but not as prehensile as something like an orangutan or a chimpanzee. So it's a unique formation, and it makes sense for an animal that's walking upright on its hind legs. The handprints of the orang pendek are quite different from the orangutan, which has very long fingers. These have a short, thick, sausage-like fingers and a much larger thumb, more like the handprint of a gorilla, but somewhat smaller. When I was in the Garrow Hills hunting the yeti, we came across a series of tracks down near a stream where this creature had gone along, and it was overturning rocks and eating freshwater crabs. And the footprints were very human-like, but larger than a man's, and sinking twice as far into the mud as mine. And I at the time was 18 stone, and this thing was twice the size of me, and it was not an adult because the footprint was only about 12 inches long. And the people there, the witnesses were saying that the yeti, or the mandibarung as they call it locally, they were saying it was 18 inches or more in length, an adult.
God. And
I've heard the orang pendek calling. I've heard it calling. I've heard a number of vocalisations for the orang pendek. There's a one that sort of goes, ha, ha, ha. Then there's a much louder one, which I think is territorial, that sort of goes, quite unlike any other species of ape.
No, definitely not. So what would happen if and when these creatures are found?
Well, the Centre for Fortean Zoology would never kill one of these creatures.
No.
To prove that they exist, because we don't know how many they are, and we're opposed to doing that. When we were hunting the deathworm, we were hoping if we saw one we could catch it, because they're relatively small. 3 to 5 feet long. You could capture one, because I've handled snakes and lizards and all sorts of things, and transport it back to Ulaanbaatar for identification. The real goal is to get good film and good genetic material, the DNA that we can preserve. The thing about DNA, it's so fragile, so easily contaminated. It's what we really need. And also when we use trail cams, and we've tested these out in Britain, we found that in order to catch anything, they've got to be up, to get a photograph on it, they've got to be up for, a couple of months, really. If you leave them up for a couple of weeks, you get virtually nothing. We tested these in the woods near the Centre for Fortean Zoology HQ in Wolseley in North Devon, and we got woodpeckers, otters, badgers, foxes, deers, a woman having a pee in the bushes, all sorts of things. But it took us a long time. So if you stick them up on an expedition, unless you're extraordinarily lucky, you're not going to get anything. They have to be up there for a long time. On our expeditions, they're usually 2 to 3 weeks because of financial constraints. Really, if we had the money, we'd like to have these things in place for 6 months at a time. Really. Yeah. And we'd like to be out in the field for much, much longer than we are. But it's all down to the folding green stuff at the end.
Right. Well, what cryptids do you think are the most likely to be scientifically discovered?
The thylacine or Tasmanian wolf, the orang pendek, the yeti, the giant anaconda, and the almasti are the ones that spring out. The Japanese wolf probably as well.
Yeah. And what cryptids do you think are least likely to exist?
Well, there are some that I think are complete bosh, like the chupacabra, which is a bit of a catch-all thing for anything weird. John Downes, who has investigated this thing many times, thinks the spiky-backed creature is actually people seeing an undiscovered species of New World porcupine, because where this creature was reported in Puerto Rico, he found damage to plantain trees, which were exactly like the damage to plantain trees he had seen in Hong Kong that were done by porcupines. And the so-called livestock attacks were done by mongooses that had been released on the island. They're not native to Puerto Rico, but they've been released on the island. And once again, he had examined victims of mongoose attacks, and they were exactly the same. So I think the chupacabra is a big red herring.
Yeah.
I think there are no species of surviving dinosaur other than birds, and more's the pity. I don't think there are plesiosaurs or anything in any of the world's oceans or lakes.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean to say I don't believe in sea serpents or lake monsters. I just don't think that they are plesiosaurs.
Right. Okay. And what did you say your next exhibition was?
My next exhibition. I would say I'm pronouncing it my next. I keep saying exhibition like I'm an artist.
That's wrong, isn't it?
Yes.
It's not an expedition.
Expedition. Expedition.
Yeah.
Is to Tasmania to hunt for the Tasmanian wolf in March.
That's been your dream, though, hasn't it?
Yeah. If you can prove that one is still out there, that's a triumph.
Okay.
I think we only really need success on one of them to get people interested.
Yeah.
And then get the finance to go looking for others.
Will you come back and let us know how you got on?
I certainly will.
Because I'm always interested in your expeditions, find out what you found, and as I've said to you before, I'd love to join you, but I'm not into creepy crawlies. And you probably get enough of them when you're there, big spiders and stuff.
You're having problems getting to the living room, let alone
no,
let alone through the jungle.
But where can people find more about you, Richard?
Well, they can find more on the CFZ website, which is www.cfz.org.uk, and you can look me up on Amazon. I've written a number of books on folklore, on cryptozoology, and also some horror anthologies that I write fiction as well. So if you look up Richard Freeman and on Amazon, you'll probably get me.
Yes. Was the In Search of the Rampen Deck, was that your last book?
No, it was my last. That Orang Pendek Sumatra's Forgotten Ape was my last non-fiction work. Since then, I've done 2 horror anthologies.
Okay.
I will be at some point writing a book on the Tasmanian wolf, and if we get this project on Pierre Denis de Montfort, the giant squid researcher, if we get that off the ground, I'll probably be writing a book about him and the search for the giant squid.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank you personally for sending us some of your articles for our magazine. And to let you know that we've run out. So if you have any more, it would be great if you could send us some over. But
yeah, well, if you tell me what I've sent you, because I've forgotten, if you email me with what's been sent already.
Yeah, no problem. But it's been great having you back on, Richard. I love having you on. You're our only cryptozoologist. So and it's great having you on. So please be careful when you go out there, and I hope you find what you're looking for. Yeah,
I mean, I'm always hoping that somewhere in the wilds of Asia, I'll be kidnapped by a tribe of 7-foot Asian Amazon women whose men have died of exhaustion. But it's not happened yet.
I don't know. You wouldn't be able to watch Doctor Who then, would you?
No,
he wouldn't care.
What do you think of the latest Doctor Who?
I love Peter Capaldi. I think he's the best Doctor since the halcyon days of John Pertwee and Tom Baker.
Yeah.
The scripts are hit and miss. Mm-hmm. Some of them are great, some of them are not so good.
Okay. Well, anyway, I wish you all the best of luck. Thank you again for coming on. Have a very nice Christmas.
And you.
Okay, and hopefully we'll try to get to the Weird Weekend next year.
Oh, there are 2 Weird Weekends this year.
Oh, right.
There's the ordinary Weird Weekend, which is in August, but there's Weird Weekend North.
Right.
Now. Weird Weekend North, which is in April.
Uh-huh.
So if you look up Weird Weekend North, you'll get all the details of where it is and who's speaking and like the whole 9 yards.
Brilliant. I'll have a look at that. Okay, well, thanks very much, Richard. Take care.
Cheers, then.
Give
Bye.
a love to John. Bye-bye. Well, that was Richard Freeman, and great conversationalist. I love speaking to him. I'd like to apologise again for the chat. I think live stream's finally giving up the ghost. We knew it was going to go, didn't we, Andy?
Mm-hmm. They did threaten us some time ago. So.
Yes, it did. So I'm terribly sorry about that. I have opened up a couple of new chats. One of them was over on the Ustream, but I didn't see any of you in there. But as I say, next week we'll get something sorted out.
Brendan was in there because he asked about the chupacabra, but you kind of said the question anyway.
Oh, did I? I didn't get that question anyway.
Yeah, he says, what does Richard think about it? And then he went and answered it, but without you asking the question.
Where's the question?
In the Ustream.
In the Ustream? I didn't see that.
Yeah, I'm looking right at it now. He says, what does Richard think about the chupacabra, and does he think it's real?
I'm not seeing that. No, that's wrong. That is wrong. Oh, no, it's there. That's probably why I was seeing it. I was in the wrong place. So, there you go. You've got answers from that one. Thank you for joining us over there. So, it didn't come through on my bit, I'm afraid. But at least you got an answer. Sorry about the chat. As I say, live stream have been threatening us for a while, so we'll have to sort something out this week and see what we can find. That one you gave me, Andy, I can't embed it, so I won't be able to use that one, unfortunately. I don't think I can embed it.
We'll set it up as a separate page.
So, what's that say? Not a lot. But I'll have a look around anyway, and I have got some in mind, so... okay, right, well, let me just tell you what's coming on next week. We have John Kaneko James on the show. He's a writer living in London. He works as a tour guide at Shakespeare's Globe Theatre and maintains his own small guiding company called Boo Tours, as in Boo, as in peekaboo, who specialise in entertaining walks around the scenic and macabre sights of London, not to mention strange and spine-tingling ghost stories. Now, he's going to talk to us about the Great Fire of London. Now, you might not think much of that, but it was a huge urban fire that started in the early hours of the morning of Sunday, the 2nd of September 1666, and by Tuesday the 4th it had destroyed 13,200 houses, 87 churches, and a huge number of civil and ecclesiastical... I can't say that word. What is it, Andy?
Ecclesiastical.
There you go. Landmarks.
Churches.
The place was a major blow to the British economy, and it created a story that is incredible in the British psyche. On the other hand, there have been some very odd goings-on, says John Kaneko James, and we're going to find out about it. That the subject is Fortean events surrounding the Great Fire of London, so we're going to find out more about that, aren't we, Andy?
Absolutely. Also, of course, St Paul's Cathedral was destroyed by the Great Fire where I used to work. Not the one I worked in, of course, because that was a long time ago, but I worked in the replacement. Yes, amazing amount of damage. I met John, of course, at the Vampire Symposium earlier this year, so I asked him if he'd like to come on, and I think it should be an interesting little chat, yeah.
Yes, it should be a good show. So we'll have to sort something out with that, and it'll be quite interesting. Right, what we're going to do now is just to mention to you that, as Andy said earlier, issue 7 will be out next week, and of our magazine. Is that right, Andy?
Yeah, should be no problem. As I say, it's just unfortunately because of problems with my book that's actually will be at the printers tomorrow morning. It's delayed things a little bit. Plus the other bits and bobs I had to sort out, the kind of ongoing issues I need to address. So it's just meant things have been a bit delayed, but it will be out very soon, definitely.
Okay. Now, if you joined us halfway through that conversation, you would have missed the start of the show, which we were talking about the fact that we're all very ill this evening, and this is going to be a short show tonight. So what we're going to do is I'm going to hand you over to Andy, who's going to tell you about his story, because you have one, don't you, Andy?
I do, but unfortunately I can't put the link up because I'm having complete breakdown of the whole system. I can't even get into Ustream at the moment. Every time I try to click on it, it's to me to log in with Facebook. I've just tried that; it wouldn't let me do it. So, unfortunately, I can't really get in at all. But
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
And then we can put it up for you.
I might have got it working. Give me a second. Let's see if this has actually worked this time. So we do need to get this chat room business sorted out at some point.
We will get it sorted out for next week.
It's a shame. It always worked so nice, didn't it?
I know.
You don't have to log in or anything or add any bloody details. You just sort of, typed in what you needed to say, and that was it. That was all was needed. But now all this hoo-ha with Facebook. Of course, every time you post on Ustream, your Facebook thing will put it up, and you can't actually add URLs to the Ustream feed anyway. So you can't even do that. It's just the URL's not allowed. Well, there's the link. I've given it to you guys, but I'll sure read this to everybody. Of course, if you're only listening on the Worsley radio, you can't see the links anyway, so you can just listen to me talking about this, which is Ghost Boats Mystery continues to grip Japan. We're back over in the Far East again with a strange mystery. Mystery surrounds a fleet of ghost boats with headless skeletons or rotting corpses on board that are washing up on Japan's shores. Now, this sounds like straight out of a horror film, but this is actually true, apparently. At least 14 weathered vessels, some badly damaged or capsized, with almost a dozen bodies have been discovered since October. Mounting evidence suggests that these rickety boats have come from isolated, impoverished North Korea. Some internet users in Japan speculate the dead could have been defectors looking for escape from the intolerant regime of Kim Jong-un. I'll try to say that a few times and get a few drinks. But experts say it's likely to be fishermen on an ill-fated but government-maintained search for bigger catches. Out of the 3 bodies that our divers found on the 23rd of November, one had its head, but 2 others were headless. Coast Guard Sheriff, Japanese name, told AFP of a vessel discovered in the Sea of Japan, South Sea, last month. When we dragged the ship on shore, we found 6 skulls inside, he added. The detachment of the heads indicates those on board could have been dead for a considerable time, with body parts separated by lengthy natural decay. So they're suggesting rather than beheaded, the necks have just sort of disintegrated, heads have fallen off. Coast Guard says the boats were nothing new, pointing out that over the last 5 years there have been more than 250 incidents involving at least one boat. There we go. But the sudden concentration of finds over a short period is unusual. Some of the vessels have Korean language markings suggesting connections with the North Korean military or state security organs. Japan's North Korea-obsessed media are quick to pounce on the story, dispatching teams of reporters and camera crews to communities along the shore where these boats have appeared. I didn't know that. The Japanese are obsessed with North Korea. Such a reaction is no surprise to a country with ample reasons to be suspicious, even fearful of its antagonistic and often unpredictable neighbour. In the 70s and 80s, North Korea agents launched kidnapping raids in Japan's coastline, snatching people to train in the Stalinist regime's spies in Japanese language and customs. For years, Phnom Penh, see I can pronounce one word, denied the charges, but now admits it abducted a handful of people. Japanese campaigners say it could have been more than 100, and remains opaque about the fate of many. The issue continues to provoke strong emotions in Japan, where any hint of clandestine North Korean action is leapt on. On Thursday, Japan's Coast Guard provided at least the latest clue linking the ghost ships to Phnom Penh. Phnom Penh. I can't say that word. Right, I give up. When it announced the discovery of a new set of remains inside a wooden ship found on the shores of Sado Island. Body was wearing a black jumper and trousers, Coast Guard Horishima Suzuki told AFP. The flesh in his skull had all gone. Lovely. On the outside of the ship was the sign of the Korean script, whilst inside there was a backpack containing a badge with what looked like an image of Kim Jong-il, the late father of the current Korean leader Kim Jong-un, Suzuki said. Long Japanese name. An expert. Sorry, I'm not going to try and pronounce this. I'm going to get it all wrong. An expert in North Korea at the Tokyo Waseda University said it was likely that the vessels had been fishing boats that had been ventured far from their own coast in the search of bigger catches, at the behest of the leader Kim. Food shortages have been serious in North Korea, and Kim Jong-un's last year ordered more fish to be caught to resolve the problem. Yong Moo-yin, a professor at the University of North Korea Studies at Seoul, agreed. Nearly all North Korean fishermen belong to state or military organisations, and they have often been pushed to seek bigger catches in more distant remote waters, he said. The main problem is that the vessels are old and poorly equipped, and if they run into trouble, mechanical or otherwise, on the high seas, they become highly vulnerable, with no option to call for rescue. In those circumstances, they run out of fuel and food very quickly, Young said. So there we go. It could be that it's all coming from North Korea, or it could be something darker and more mysterious, and more sinister, like Steve's cough. Pretty serious. So there we go. That's I thought it was a rather interesting little story I came across there whilst doing my research. Whereas we're all sort of dying of various lurk-related illnesses, and I've always splitting headache. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, my cough is definitely mysterious.
Yes. So, thank you for that.
That's all right.
Yeah, welcome.
So, well, we've come to the end of the show. As I say, I'm sorry that it's a short one tonight, but as I say, we're gonna.
Yes, we had a choice. We either do a shortish one, or not do it at all. So we decided to go ahead and just do a shortish.
We didn't let our millions of listeners down, did we, guys?
No, we didn't. No. So next week we should be back to normal.
I hope so. I don't want another week of this.
So, but we'd like to apologise for the shortness of the show. Don't forget, if you feel like listening to a tongue-in-cheek poke at historical and current affairs and facts and fiction, then why not tune in to Thursday evening's A Can of Worms, hosted by Dan Franklin and Jed Hindmarsh, who will be shedding new light and dismissing truths on various topics, described as a radio show for the curious and questioning mind. So why not give it a listen from 8:30 p.m. UK time on Thursday at worsleyradio.co.uk.
Yeah, we'd definitely like to thank you for listening to the KTPF Community Talk Show, which is supported by Phenomena Magazine and Beyond Parazine.
Yeah, we hope you enjoyed tonight's show, and we have enjoyed your company, and look forward to seeing you next week from 8 p.m. on www.ktpf.co.uk. We're all going to go away now and rest our poor selves. Andy's got a thumping headache, and my hip's playing me up, so hopefully everything's going to be all right for me tomorrow. It's my arthritis that's giving me jip, I'm afraid. So I'm in a bit of an agony tonight. This poor Steve's been having coughing fits, haven't you?
Oh, yes.
So please join us next week. As I say,
yes,
we hope to.
Yes, and while you're all out celebrating your work dues and everything else like that, please get somebody else to drive or get a taxi. It's not worth it. The last thing your relatives want to be doing is looking at a present under the tree they can't give you.
Yes.
So please be careful, keep healthy, and we will see you all again soon.
Okay. Until next time, it's good night from me.
And it's good night from her.
It's good night for the living dead.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes, definitely. And all that's left to say is
keep the paranormal friendly. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Night, guys.
Night. Let me just get this up ready.
This is where it's at.
From ghoulies and ghosties and long-legged beasties and things that go bump in the night, visit our ghost store, and next time you might be able to show what just gave you a fright.
So for all of your investigation needs, with over 100 products in stock waiting for dispatch within 24 hours, you need to visit theukghoststore.com.